Hi, it's Steve Argadon, and welcome to the final day of the Global STEM Education Conference. Hard to believe we're at this place, although there's still lots of fun ahead. Avis Yates Rivers, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Happy to be here.
So glad to have you here. Also, so glad to have such supportive sponsors for the conference. This is the only time they really get any mention at the beginning of each session, so do express your appreciation to them if you know anybody working for any of those fine companies. Especially thanks to HP and ISTE for being founding sponsors. This is a chance for you to indicate where you're participating from. Look to the left of the map. You're looking for the star icon. I'm going to click on it twice and then click on the map. It's always fun to have you put in the chat time, temperature, anything that you think would be interesting. Looks like Shambles in Thailand is making this an international. Oh, good. We are now officially an international session. We've had lots of great global participation. It really is fun to see people from all over the world gathering together and sharing practices. We think this is a phenomenally interesting period of time for this kind of sharing. Okay, I'm not going to take any more of your time, Avis. I am going to move us to the next slide. People, please feel free to continue sharing in the chat to your location. But Avis, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning to you all, or good day for those of you not in this time zone. I am Avis Yates Rivers, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Technology Concepts Group International and an NCWIT Director, that is the National Center for Women in IT. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that organization a little later. I want to thank you for joining me this morning. I am a 28-year technology business owner. I cut my teeth on Wall Street before all of the great technology that we know and love today came into being. I was marketing and selling some really first century technology, if you will, and I'm going to leave it at that. I think just telling you 28 years is bad enough on my part. So I've already told you that I'm a director of the National Center for Women in IT, a nonprofit organization based in Boulder, which is solely focused on increasing the utilization of women and underrepresented people of color in the design and innovation and creation of technology. Last year I was honored for the work that I'm doing in this STEM field by the White House, and so I'm very proud of that recognition. So let's just jump right in. Why do women matter? Why do we have to have this conversation? Well, I think first and foremost, the answer to that is the fact that the technology jobs are exploding here in the U.S. and all across the world, as I'm sure you're seeing in your parts of your country. And there just aren't enough men to fill those jobs. That's just fact number one. But why women matter goes a lot deeper than that. You know, we have different perspective. We view the world differently. We have a different way of looking at and then solving problems. We listen differently, we collaborate well, and we're good at group learning. So there's a lot of inherent reasons why women should have a seat at the design table. And I'll share a lot more about that as we go on. So we know that women matter. And I want you to take a look at these numbers in these boxes because we have a problem. And the problem is the fact that diverse participation remains incredibly low. And I'll share a little bit more about what these numbers represent in just a minute. I've told you about NCWIT. There is the website for NCWIT. I invite you all to visit and find out about the wonderful work that this organization is doing and has been doing for almost 10 years. We were originally chartered by the National Science Foundation, a branch of the U.S. government, because they recognize that if we didn't do something to change this dynamic, we would be in a world of trouble. We would not be able to continue to create technology and run the businesses that are all dependent upon technology, and I don't know any that is not. So we want to increase the meaningful participation of girls and women because we recognize that they are absent. So before NCWIT, what was prevalent was a lot of programs in isolation. A lot of successful things going on around the country that were either local or regionalized. A lot of them were very dependent for their sustainability on a charismatic leader or change agent. And if something happened to that person, then the program was in jeopardy. There was not any sharing of resources and practices, and there was no national effort going on at all. And that was throughout the entire pipeline from K-12 to corporate. Lots of people running summer camps, Girls Fest, but nothing cohesive until NCWIT. And NCWIT built this national infrastructure. We call it a change leader community. And there's lots of people and organizations in action because we've created national platforms for action. And first what we had to do was do a lot of social science research because there was no evidence. We knew there was a problem, but that's all we knew. We didn't know where the problems were, why the problems existed, and what needed to be done. And so there's now hundreds of evidence-backed resources, which is free to one and all to take, use, and help to change this dynamic. And you can find them all at ncwit.org/resources. So let's just cut to the chase. Okay, we know that from all of our research that there's a lot of negative talk, chit-chat going on, mostly in social media, but too much of that chit-chat is about the problem and casting blame, and that's not what we're about. We're trying to understand where the problems are and then create the ways to solve those problems. So we've learned and we know that technical women aren't broken and that technical men aren't the enemy. You know, that's just not the problem. The problem is mostly the fact that there is societal bias that's shared by all of us, and that manifests itself in technical cultures, and I'll show you a lot of examples of that. And we also know that we can all do something about it, and I'll share with you what you can do as well. So going back to that slide with the numbers in the boxes, this is what they represent. These are the facts. We have a research paper called Women in IT, the Facts. And we have a subsequent one called Girls in IT, the Facts. And so those documents are available to you at ncwit.org, and this is what the facts say. There are not enough girls taking the AP test for computer science. 19% of AP CS test takers are girls. And that women only represent 18% of the computer science degrees being earned in colleges across the country today. And then that 56% is very important also, because once we do attract girls and women into technology careers, they leave at mid-career. And they leave at 56%, which is about twice the quit rate of men. And so the problem is not fixed just by getting them in. We have to look across the entire pipeline and try and push more women into senior leadership roles in technology. More facts. These numbers just don't add up. Women comprise 57% of all U.S. professional occupations. More than the majority, certainly, but they hold only 25% of technology-related jobs. And if I drill down a little bit on that number, because I feel diversity also matters, that of that 25% U.S. technology jobs that women hold, only 3% are held by women of African-American descent and 1% by Hispanic women. And so there's an even greater problem when you overlay ethnic diversity on top of gender diversity. we know that women make up only 19% of the software developers in the country. And so here again, you know, the fact remains that women are not inventing the technology that we all depend on. And that's a problem because of the way we approach problems and solve them. And so we'll continue on with that thought in a few minutes. Only 5% of technology leadership jobs are held by women, CIOs, CTOs, VPs of R&D. And so there's no clear path to leadership for women in technology jobs. So what we've done, a lot of research, and I'm going to go through a lot of it in the next few minutes. I'm not going to do it justice, but again, I invite you to visit ncwit.org and take a look at all of these studies up there for yourself. But just some things that really point to that societal bias I talked about. Now, if I were to ask you, who's the computer scientist in this picture? I know what you would say. I know what I would say. It's not discrimination. It's just societal bias. Society has programmed us almost to believe that young white males are the smart developers of technology, and that an attractive female is incongruent with that thought. That's just the way we think. If I were to bring this closer to home, some of you may have heard about the Roizen study that was conducted at Columbia Business School by the associate professor there named Frank Flynn. Before class, he conducted a well-known study asking one section of his students to read the original case of Heidi Roizen. And then he had another section of his students read a version of the case called Howard Roizen. Nothing was changed in these two cases except for the relevant pronouns. The students were then asked to go online and rate Heidi Howard on several dimensions. I can tell you the results were very, very disturbing, and they were incredibly harsh when the students thought that Roizen was a woman, but not so when they thought that it was a man. Let me share some of those results with you. So these are some negative attributes. How power-hungry, self-promoting, and disingenuous was Roizen. And the students who responded, all of these negative attributes were worse when they thought that Roizen was a woman. The green represents Howard and the blue Heidi. And that's some pretty significant differences on it when they were asked to rate them on a scale of 1 to 7, with 1 being not at all power-hungry, self-promoting, and disingenuous, and 7 being extremely power-hungry, self-promoting, and disingenuous. Very disturbing results. Secondly, they were asked to rate how competent and effective was Roizen. And again, on the positive attributes, Howard was rated much higher than Heidi. Same person. And then on this last piece of evidence, we asked, would you like to hire or would you emulate Roizen? And again, Howard scored much higher in all 3 of those areas than Heidi did. Very interesting. So we know that the problem lies in societal biases, but what causes them? They're caused by what we call schemas. Schemas are necessary for us to live, and we all have them. They allow us to pay attention to only select information, which is very good because we can't absorb it all. I know I have very finite limitations when it comes to absorbing lots of information that we are bombarded with every day. So they allow us to pay attention to only select information, almost like shortcuts. But the problem is that they can also cause us to misinterpret certain things, which leads us to unconscious bias. And we know that unconscious bias is much more salient in homogenous organizations. So, you know, this just represents the fact that it's more striking and more relevant when you have organizations that are of the same nature and of the same kind. They share common values and cultures and language, ethnicity, and gender. It's much more, I'm sorry, I should turn that off. I'll close that real quick. Okay. It's much more noticeable in those types of cultures. So, going to give you an example of some of the societal biases. This first one is called subtle dynamics. We saw that on the last slide. And one example of a subtle dynamic is a stereotype threat. And in this example, white male engineering students scored lower on tests when they were told in advance that Asians typically score higher on math tests. It's quite interesting. Another stereotype threat impacts technical women. Now imagine me walking into this room, okay? Everybody's the same. They're all white men in looks like the same suit, middle age to older. Now me today, I would come in there and be quite comfortable, but that's because I've got 30 years under my belt. And I'm very comfortable with the value that I can bring. But if it was me 20 years ago as a technical woman, I'd come in there just and sit down, be quiet, not say anything, and miss opportunities because I was too struck by the fact that, oh, what in this picture doesn't belong, that would be me. So women are reluctant to speak up in meetings when they're all male-dominated. They're reluctant to take leadership positions. And what's quite interesting is the fact that women are overly harsh about their own work. This is what the research said. And they're so easy to give credit to the team. And in doing so, they're discounting their own performance. This is an example of micro-inequities, this slide, another subtle dynamic. You know, we call these slights and the oops, okay, where your societal bias will automatically address or attach the role of receptionist or secretary to the woman in the group. And you'll say something like, you're the receptionist, right? And then there's that's the slight. The exclusion would be, you know what, I forgot to CC Jane on that email about the architectural review. You know, just totally exclude women. And then the recognition that I'm pretty sure that she would not have had the idea to use or to do something, like use the link algorithm. And then the isolation micro-inequity just does not include her or makes her feel isolated when you would say something, and I know no one on this phone would ever say, dude, let's go grab a beer. You know, but those kinds of things happen in homogenous cultures and work environments every day. And then there was the institutional barriers. These are the things that just happen in the environment. They always have, you know, there's no one there trying to change the dynamic. So people are always hiring people like themselves. That's just natural. You know, you have to work a little harder to hire someone that's not like you, because you may not have as high a comfort level as someone like you. And then women find themselves in low-status jobs. We call these empathy jobs or soft skills. So you saw that women hold 25% of technical jobs, but too many of them are empathy jobs, you know, and they have different titles across the pipeline, but you can imagine them being things like analyst or project manager or something like that, as opposed to, you know, something more concrete. And then performance appraisals. We've had corporations take a look at their performance appraisals and their job postings, and they were surprised to find subtle biases in the way those things are worded and the way that they are carried out. Most often, men are appraised for their effort and their skill, women for luck, collaboration. And then the promotion criteria is modeled solely on existing senior male leaders. Remember, I told you that there are very few women who break through to senior technical leadership positions. And so the pathway to get there and be promoted to those spots are based on existing male leadership models. So that won't work. So these are the kinds of institutional barriers that have to be, hurdled by women, but also have to be broken down by the organizations. This is an interesting example of an institutional barrier called a bias in hiring. Not sure if you've read this review, but there were blind orchestra auditions that were being held because women were just not being hired by major symphony orchestras. And so they held these auditions behind the curtain. The musicians were not allowed to speak, to cough, or to cue their gender in any way. They even had to remove their shoes when walking on the stage, so that you couldn't tell whether there were high heels or wingtips coming across. And interestingly enough, based solely on the performance and the ability of the musician, the number of female musicians that were hired increased by 25 to 46%. Quite interesting. So, what am I supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? What can we do? There are things that you can do right now, and some of these I've captured on this slide. You have to try and incorporate diversity into your brand, into your organization's DNA. You have to go to where the diverse candidates are. You can't just continue to recruit from the same sources and expect different results, different types of candidates. You have to include other networks, diverse networks, to identify recruits. And then you need to inspect your own culture and processes for these unconscious biases, and then do something to get them out of the way. And ensure inclusive team meetings and social events. Sometimes women are reluctant. I have to share with you, women are reluctant to participate in these social events, but you have to really work to make these things inclusive. And then take a look at your physical space and make sure that it doesn't have any gendered vibes like the sign that we see here, quiet programmers at work. Then some things not to do. Don't lower your hiring standards, just to make sure that you're getting, in your mind, candidates that might not be as qualified, but they're of the right gender or ethnicity. Please don't do that. But what you want to do is to focus on hiring for the things that matter, or the right things, okay? So if you're hiring for things that have been in place just because they've always been in place in a male environment, what of those things don't matter, and what things should be more inclusive in your hiring standards. And then don't form development teams with just one woman engineer. That is the loneliest place in the world for a woman, to be the only one. In one of our studies at NCWIP, in identifying who invents technologies, it was a patent study. We found that the patents that had the most citations were those that were developed by cross-gender teams. And so they were much more successful. And it was more than just one engineer on there. And then don't dump this on the backs of the female employees. Don't depend on them to broaden the ranks and to advance your gender goals. They may know more women and can bring those to the table, but it certainly should not be dependent upon them. And then finally, don't give up, because this certainly is a marathon. It's taken years to get us into this place that we are now, and it's certainly going to take some time to get us out of that. You know what? What's good for the goose is also good for the gander. Men also benefit from the things that are put in place that supports more women. So, for example, men will also be happy about getting credit for their work and getting the opportunity to take time off to care for family matters, be it new births or aging parents. Men would be happy to be given a clear path to promotion also, and also to be working with trained supervisors. So what benefits women will also benefit men in work environments. And now a little bit about NCWIT. I told you earlier that it was formed to solve this problem for the country and for the government. And it is now an organization of over 350 other organizations. They are corporations, major U.S. corporations and global corporations. They are government agencies. They are nonprofit organizations. They are startups. They are affinity groups. And so NCWIT has created these 5 affinity groups or alliances, as we call them, and a social science advisory board, so that whatever place you fit in, if you want to come in and help change the world, there is a place for you. So the K-12 Alliance is made up of mostly nonprofit organizations who are working towards this. So examples include the Girl Scouts, the Girls Inc., Sally Ride Science, 4-H Club, and just lots of nonprofit organizations. In fact, with this alliance, we touch more than 60% of the girls in the country, because NCWIT does not directly touch girls and women, except for in one place, but we work with the organizations that do. The Academic Alliance is just a wonderful group of universities, colleges and universities across the country that are working to change their gender diversity. They're working on ways to attract more girls into their computing programs. They are working to change the way computer science is taught, because we learned that initial attraction to a computer science course is very off-putting. You know, the AP test, we're looking at that as well, because it's very off-putting. You know, who wants to, unless you're just wired like that, who wants to start an educational career in deep code? You know, it's just, there's so much else to talk about and to learn. First, theory and understanding how to solve problems and logic, and it's just a wonderful course of study, but it wasn't starting off right, and so it just put off a lot of people, and especially girls. The Workforce Alliance is where all of the corporations are working together for change. They're working on their own institutional unconscious biases. They're learning from the practices and other resources that we've developed on how to change things from the inside out. The Entrepreneurial Alliance is for startups. We want startups to make sure that they are hiring women and underrepresented minorities right from the beginning. And so there's a lot of organizations that support startups. There are venture funds, and there are also a lot of startups themselves, tech startups. The Affinity Group Alliance, which is the newest one, is tapping the legion of people who are connected within their corporations in these resource groups, which we call affinity groups, whether it be women's groups, or the women in technology, or the African American group, the Hispanic group, the Asian group, the LGBT group. These are affinity groups within major corporations that are bringing their thousands and millions of members together to help address this problem. And then the Social Science Board, we have social scientists on staff from many major universities who are in constant study and development of resources. So that's NCWIT, 501c3 organization. It's based in Boulder at the University of Colorado Boulder, and it was founded by 3 people, and the CEO is Lucy Sanders, a Bell Labs fellow who thought she had retired and got tapped to create this national organization. And I have to tell you, they have done a tremendous job in just 9 short years. This is an example of some of the resources that NCWIT has created and distributes to one and all. You can get hard copy if you like. They can send it to you. But we invite you to just go online and get them for yourselves. So some of them include practices. So that's the box on the left, where we studied promising practices to determine whether the success was based on inherent ways that the practice was carried out, or was it somebody who was just enforcing their will, and whether or not the success of a practice could be replicated in other places. And so these practices that were studied, those that were determined to be effective practices, have been recorded and created, and they're ready to follow. You know, so there's no trying to figure out what to do. These are the things that work, have been determined to work by vigorous and rigorous study, and they're available to be used today. And then the boxes we have. We've got all kinds of boxes. I call these to just add water and stir. And then you can be doing these things. Some of them include mentoring technical women in a box, or effective supervisors in a box, where organizations can just take them, brand them, customize them in any way if necessary, and then begin utilizing them right away. We want to make it easy for people to become a change agent and to want to do something positive. The TP cards, those are talking points cards, because there's a lot of information. I have to admit that my first couple of years on the board, while I was all excited and eager to do something, to make a difference, be the change I wanted to, that I saw, it was like drinking from a fire hose. There was just so much coming at me. And there's so much to learn and know. And so we developed these talking point cards about different points. So it's encapsulated, you know, it's like bullets, it's headlines, it's so that anybody can pick up a TP and go and share it with somebody and just learn that much if that's all they had the time to do. And so those are extremely useful. And then the workbooks, they're designed for you to conduct training with. You know, so if you want to train your supervisors, you can certainly do that with this workbook that's already prepared and ready for your use, free of charge. And then the top 10s. We developed about 5 or 6 of these. Top 10 ways that you can retain technical women. Top 10 ways that you can hire and find technical women. Top 10 ways that technical women can make themselves more visible. Top 10 this. There's quite a number of them that gives you step-by-step and very feasible and doable steps that you can take to affect that change that's covered by each individual top 10. And then the reports. I talked to you already about women in IT, the facts. All of the information that I'm sharing with you today is in that document. We have a scorecard, NCWIT scorecard, which really will be, it's like a longitudinal study. It will be tracking things over the course of years as we are in existence. And by the way, NCWIT, we formed it to just be in existence for 20 years. And by that time, we want to have achieved parity in women in technology. And you know, we've only got 10 good years left, and so we could use all the help we can get. That bottom report is called By the Numbers. All the numbers I've shared with you today are in that. It's a nice, small, fold-up little thing. I always have one or two in my purse, and I'm always giving them out because there's a lot of additional information that's in By the Numbers. One of them that's very stark and resonates with everyone, and I shared this when I was talking in front of 400 corporate people in New York City yesterday morning, the fact that U.S. corporations by 2020 will have created 1.4 million net new technology jobs. How in the world are we going to fill them? Where are those people going to come from? We're not graduating enough. We don't have enough girls being introduced to technology. We have to start, and that's why NC-WIT starts at the K level, you know, the K-12 Alliance. It's very important to plant those seeds at a young age and then shepherd those girls throughout the pipeline. So By the Numbers gives you a quick, ready reference resource for a lot of the data points that we've learned. And these are the national participation frameworks, if you will. These are the programs that people associate themselves to and go out and work towards. And I told you earlier that NC-WIT doesn't touch the girls and women, but works with the organizations that do, except for one place, and that's here, the NC-WIT Award for Aspirations in Computing. This is a very, very exciting and interesting program that we created just 5 years ago. And at that time, what we wanted to do was to recognize girls, high school girls, who have showed some leadership and some level of aptitude and interest in technology, and to make them feel valued and that they weren't strange, and that we wanted to encourage them to continue to think along those lines, and we wanted to shepherd them into our Academic Alliance schools with scholarships, and then into our Workforce Alliance corporate members with internships and jobs upon graduation. So we started this program just a few years ago. We may have had about 30 applicants. You go online and you apply for this award. And, you know, and then those girls, a couple of winners were selected. They were flown to Charlotte, North Carolina, because Bank of America is a sponsor of this program, and they were honored. They were given checks and laptops and, you know, just made a big fuss about them. Well, that was 5 years ago and 30 girls. Today, this past season, we had over 1,800 applicants, and we had 55 regional awards programs and still one national award program in Charlotte. But there were national and regional winners selected in 55 regions of the country. Well, talk about scaling in a few short years. And NC-WIT's not interested in building a huge administrative and professional staff, and so the board got involved. I gave out awards in San Diego and South Carolina and other places, and so we all got involved, which was really good for us as well, you know, to go out and to really be a part of this fast-moving train. And so those first girls are now graduating from college, and we have created a community, a talent pipeline, and they stay connected. They have their own Facebook page. They support each other. They help each other. It's just a wonderful thing to have seen develop to this magnitude over the course of a few short years. And it is really just very successful, so much so that Google has funded the development of a middle school program like Aspirations. We call it Aspire IT. And so it's stepping back into the pipeline and taking an even younger set of girls in middle school and making sure that the interest and seeds are planted there, and then they can go into high school and apply for the aspirations, and then we just continue to shepherd them along the pipeline. Many of these aspirations winners have interned at many corporations across the country this summer. Some of them are now actually working full-time at some of our Workforce Alliance members' organizations. So it's just been a wonderful program, and it's just heartwarming to see us making a difference in girls' lives. Pacesetters is a place where organizations, be they academic organizations or corporate, come together in a cohort for a couple of years. They declare a goal. They declare that they want to create X net new women in technology roles within their organization, be it in their academic program or in their workforce within a certain period of time. And so we call them pace setters, and we bring them along and help them to reach that goal with whatever resources and leverage we have. And then the one that's near and dear to my heart, that red chair, it's the Sit With Me program. We realize that in order to make a major difference in the few short years that we have left, we're going to have to go mainstream with this conversation. Yes, our organizational members are doing great work and they get it, but we only have 350 organizations that are working towards this within the NC, under the NCWIT umbrella, where it needs to be 10,000 and a million in order to reach that parity goal in 10 years. And so we engaged an advertising agency in New York to come up with a media campaign. And this is the one that we chose. It's called Sit With Me. It embodies a very sturdy red chair that you see there that's made up of 111 recycled Coca-Cola bottles. And it is symbolic, if you will. We're asking people to sit down in this red chair and tell us, that's all, just tell us what can they do individually or organizationally to support technical women. So we ask people to take a stand for technical women by sitting in this red chair. Kind of makes you think of Rosa Parks, who just, made a stand, took a stand by sitting down in a seat. And so that's the mindset that we've created with this. I am honored to be the Sit With Me national spokesperson, and I go all around the country holding Sit With Me events and being invited into organizations to really rally internally support for what it is that they're trying to do and increase women's participation in computing. You can follow me at Sit With Avis if you'd like to do so. Now, Sit With Me still hasn't gone mainstream yet. We're still a nonprofit organization, and we're still looking for a national presenting sponsor for Sit With Me. And I have no doubt that we'll find one soon. And once we do, you'll see that red chair everywhere. I want it to become as well known as that pink ribbon that we all know and love and support, especially in October, which is Breast Cancer Month. So watch for the red chair. The Seed Fund, NCWIT Seed Fund, NCWIT provides funds to student organizations in colleges who have a specific program that they'd like to get off the ground in support of increasing the numbers of women in that college program. We partner very strongly with Computer Science Education Week, and we also have a program for counselors, because part of the myths that we had to dispel at the very beginning was with counselors and with parents who steered their girls and children away from careers in computing because they didn't think there'd be any jobs in computing. Well, hopefully now they know that is certainly not the truth, but we have a program specifically 4 counselors, high school guidance counselors, and we work very, very closely with them, supplying them with all kinds of information and other resources that they may need to encourage and guide their students into following a career in computing. So these are national programs that members associate themselves with. They can do things locally, but they're doing it as part of a national infrastructure, and thereby we are moving that needle. So I've talked to you already about Sit With Me, asking you to do something about it. You can visit sitwithme.org. We've got, again, a package of things that you can just take and do something with. You can implement. There's swag. You know, I was handing out red buttons throughout the audience yesterday, and it was very good to just see people wearing a red sticker saying, "Will you sit with me?" But we have to take a stand for women's future in technology because we just have to. We won't stand for anything less. As I've said, we've been around the country. I've got all kinds of people in and around the chair. To the bottom left, it's in a Boeing 747 jetliner. We've got Sheryl Sandberg from the COO of Facebook leaning in on her red chair down at the bottom. I've got it in college campuses. There was a gymnast balancing on a balance beam with one leg holding the red chair and Shaq sitting in it. You know, it looks very small under his big body, but, you know, lots of just trying to generate lots of interest and support and broaden the conversation about supporting technical women. So I have tried to leave some time here, and I have, for questions. I've said a lot. I've shared a lot. I hope that it's been helpful for you. I hope it's opened your eyes, whether you either you're a change agent and you're trying to do something and you could use some help, we're here to help you. Or if there's something that you see needs to be done and you didn't know how to start, hopefully there's something I've said today and pointed you in the direction where there's help waiting. But just want you to know that I so appreciate the opportunity to share this story with you today because it's real. It's going to impact all of us, and we all can do something about it. It's that one thing that we all can do something about. So thank you very much, and I'll wait and see if you have any questions.
So if you have a question for Avis, you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand. That's the third icon over in the participant window. It's a hand. Jim's asked several questions. I've tried to capture questions. Avis is a little long, so I'm going to ask them if they got answered and I missed it. Feel free to just move forward. But I'll start with one that Jim asked. Is there a tool for analyzing job descriptions for bias?
Not so much of a tool, Jim, as there are our social science researchers. We send them out. We send them into organizations, and they can utilize their years of knowledge and training to help you to identify where there may be some unconscious bias in your job ads and in your performance appraisals as well.
Okay, and Daniel wanted to know, is Title IX helping women into fields other than education and sports? Does it also help them in the IT sector as well, since it's limited to only federally funded programs?
I've not seen any impact that I-9 has had on this conversation. It really is impacting, you know, sporting programs, as you mentioned, financial aid, food aid, but no, I have not seen any impact on technology.
Jim again wanted to know if you have any research on gender in tech in other countries. He's thinking that he's been told the inequity is not as much in other countries.
You know, because we were chartered by the U.S. federal government to solve the problem in the United States, that's where we had to start. However, with that being said, most of our corporate members and sponsors are global organizations who also want to do something in their locations that are not housed in the U.S. And so increasingly, we are turning our attention globally, but as long as we are federally funded, we have to, the programs that are in place are for the United States and making a difference here. However, this is where the impact of our corporate members is seen, because their funds do not have to have the same limitation. And if they want to target specifically the inequity in other parts of the world, they can certainly fund NCWIT. We will help them with that. They can fund specifically for that.
Meg wanted to know if there's a formal mentoring component of Sit With Me.
No. No, Sit With Me is a campaign. It's a media campaign. It's an outreach campaign. And I'm not sure I understand what you mean by a mentoring aspect to it. If you're looking for help to broaden the conversation within your organization, I can certainly help you with that, and NCWIT can help you with that. But there's no formal mentoring component of Sit With Me because it's an outreach campaign.
It really is visually brilliant.
Thank you.
Campbell's Guru wants to know why women in tech? Why not women in leadership, or women in business, or women in Wall Street, or women in science, etc.?
You know, I agree that there should be equity in all of those places, but again, we were chartered and funded to solve a specific problem, and that problem being to increase the number of women in technology, because we saw back then that we were going to have a labor shortage. And who was missing? What from technology was very easy to see. It was women and people of color, and historically underrepresented people of color. So there are not a lot of women who look like me. I'm like the poster child, right? They're not a lot of them, and I've been in this space for 30 years, and I don't know a lot of them. I don't know a lot of women of color in technology. And as an employer and a business owner, it's even more impactful for me because I've got to compete for that very finite labor pool with Google and Facebook and all the other folks who are part of NCWIT and not, you know, that can offer bigger, better, more. So it's important to grow this pool of talent. That doesn't mean that any other area is less important. This is a big enough job to make an impact on, and I'm hopeful that what NCWIT has been able to accomplish in just 10 short years, and I'm only just so wildly excited to see what's going to happen in the next 10 years, that it can serve as a model to address similar inequities across industry industries. So I applaud you for bringing that up. It's just that this is our mission. But that doesn't mean the others shouldn't be done too.
Daniel wanted to know, have any programs like microcredit been done for women around the world for IT companies?
I'm sorry, microcredit?
Correct. Any program like microcredit been done for women around the world for IT companies?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. If you have a question for Avis, you can raise your virtual hand. Someone did, and I missed that. I don't know if you were clapping or were intending to take the microphone, but if you would like to take the mic, you're welcome to do so. Or you can put a question in the chat. I think I got them all. If I missed one, please feel free to add it again.
Can I ask a question, Steve?
Absolutely.
I see who is in the room, in the chat room. Just wondering, how are some of these participants involved in STEM? Has this been helpful? Is there something that they can take away and go do? Is there any more information that I can share? How can I be more helpful?
So Avis is looking for feedback or ways in which she can help. And you can put that in the chat. And Avis, we can actually copy this chat and send it to you.
Okay. Excellent.
Jim, I think we've got that Title IX question, but thank you. Avis, do you, your email address is there on the screen. Is it okay for people to email you directly?
Absolutely. Please reference this event. And if you feel that I can help you in your individual environments, please don't hesitate to email me and reach out to me and let me know. I am in service. You know, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. I want to be a part of this change. I'm working very hard and pouring all of myself into it. So I am here to serve. If I can help you, please let me know.
So I think we have time for one final question. Jim asks, has NCWIT studied gender bias in science K-12 classrooms?
In science?
Correct.
K-12 classrooms?
Correct, science K-12 classrooms.
You know, we are certainly a part of STEM, but again, NCWIT's mission is solely focused on the T. And the reason for that is because in our studies, we have found that the technology part of STEM is the one discipline that is grossly inequitable in gender parity. The others are doing much better. Science is doing much better than technology, as is engineering and math. And so that's why the focus was put on technology. So all of our research and our studies are going to be focused on that particular discipline. It's very finite, but it has to be. We've got a big goal.
Sorry, didn't mean to talk over you.
I was just ending by saying we've got a big goal, and we've still got a huge mountain to climb. And we have found that by being extremely focused, that's not to say we don't know what's going on, but not as well as we know what's happening in technology.
Okay, I think we've got session starting in 2 minutes, so let's wrap up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Thank you all. Continue to enjoy the conference.
Thanks, Avis. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off.